In the next several Breakfast Bible Bites, we will continue looking into the gifts of the Spirit, beginning in part 18 and what the Bible has to say about the gifts of tongues. As we've already discussed in several Breakfast Bible Bites, the gifts of the Spirit can be categorized into three categories: the gifts of comprehension, the gifts of doing, and the gifts of speech, which include prophecy, a subject already discussed in a previous Breakfast Bible Bite. However, the most divisive doctrine in the scriptural repertoire seems to be about the gift of tongues. Since it is a gift of the Spirit, let's cover all of the aspects of it over these next few Breakfast Bible Bites so that we may know the scriptural truth regardless of our position of acceptance or endorsement. We need to understand our attitude about this gift, since neither your opinion nor mine makes any difference. It is only God's opinion that counts, and His opinion is clearly stated in the testimony through His Word. Keep in mind the Spirit's warning through Paul's pen that we do not forbid speaking in other languages. What has been said in verses in chapter 13 of 1 Corinthians in terms of the gifts of tongues can be said for any of the other gifts as well. If it is exercised without love, it may as well just be an annoying gong or a clanging cymbal. Chapter 14 of the same book clarifies this statement beginning in verse 1. Pursue love and desire spiritual gifts, and above all, that you may prophesy. For the person who speaks in another language is not speaking to men but to God, since no one understands him. However, he speaks mysteries in the Spirit. But the person who prophesies speaks to the people for edification, encouragement, and consolation. The person who speaks in another language builds himself up, but he who prophesies builds the church up. I wish all of you spoke in other languages, but even more that you prophesied. The person who prophesied is greater than the person who speaks in languages, unless he interprets so that the church may be built up. Here is the truth of the matter. When a spiritual gift is exercised primarily for personal benefit of the one to whom it is gifted, this is blasphemy, although it is not the one that cannot be repented of. And as we have all observed, the usual result in a self-adulation does not abode well for the usurper. The love of God in the hearts of His servants should manifest itself to the benefit of others, and is often done at a cost to the one who exhibits God's love in a personal sacrifice of time, money, or efforts. Some denominations teach that speaking in an unknown language is the first evidence of the infilling of the Holy Spirit, while others say that they believe that the gift of tongues, they believe in the gift of tongues, but please take your tongue to a church that practices that manifestation. There are others who teach that the gift of tongues was limited only to the early church, and that that time has come to an end. So let's dig in and see what the scriptures have to say. There are two biblically named forms of this gift that are regularly employed in the assembly or in private prayer. The first is the gift of human language, where one speaks in an unlearned language to someone of that native tongue. This is defined by the Greek word glossolalia, glossa, by implication a language specifically one not naturally acquired. And the second is second named one is the mysterious angelic language. Jesus said in Mark 16:17, "And these signs will accompany those who believe. In my name they will drive out demons and speak in new languages." Acts 2:1-8 addresses the birthday of the church on earth. When the day of Pentecost had arrived, they were all together in one place. Suddenly, a sound like that of a violent rushing wind came from heaven, and it filled the whole house where they were staying. And tongues, like flames of fire that were divided, appeared to them and rested on each of them. Then they were all filled with the Holy Spirit and began to speak in different languages, as the Spirit gave them the ability to speak. There were Jews living in Jerusalem, devout men from every nation under the heaven. When this sound occurred, a crowd came together and was confused, because each one heard them speaking in his own language. And they were astounded and amazed and saying, look, aren't these all who are speaking Galileans? How is it that each of us can hear in his own native language? Since it was the Lord that confused the language in the first place, according to Genesis 11:9, it would seem only logical for him to restore an understandable language either in the mouth of the speaker or of the gospel or the ears of the hearer. This is glossolalia, and neither was it an experience unique to Pentecost. Acts 10:44 through 47. While Peter was still speaking these words, the Holy Spirit came down on all of those who heard the message. The circumcised believers, that's the Jews, who had come with Peter were astounded because this gift of the Holy Spirit had been poured out on the Gentiles as well. For they heard them speaking in other languages and declared the greatness of God. Then Peter responded, can anyone withhold water and prevent these people from being baptized who have received the Holy Spirit just as we have? Is the gift of the mind in the mind of the speaker or the ears of the hearer? There is scientific evidence that will be presented in this Breakfast Bible Bytes series on spiritual gifts, so stay tuned.